So now that all of you are here with me for this webinar, I guess you all know that UI UX design is a very upcoming and in-demand field. And if you actually go out to some job websites and make a search for UX design, you can see that there are a lot of openings, like close to 2,000 job openings are there. And there is a wide range of salaries also that are available. That said, now I would like to introduce you to this field actually. What is UI and UX design? So since you guys are here, I guess you must have read something about this on the internet. So would anyone like to tell me what you understand about UI and UX design? Is there anyone who would like to tell me? Well, okay, anyway, I am here to clarify your doubts in case you don't know the field. So, okay, so let's go on ahead. And before I talk about what UI and UX design actually is, I would like to take you through today's agenda, all the things that we're going to be doing today. So for today, we have first thing that we would go through is what exactly is a UI and UX designer. And I will explain you about his duties. Then why UI UX designers are actually important, what difference do they make to this field, the demands and market awareness that is there about designers in this field today, the scope and prospects about the job that you have in this industry today, then how a UI UX designer actually spends his days, what he does throughout his day, what processes he follows, what are his responsibilities, what are the softwares that he needs to know and what he uses. And then I'll also talk about the jobs and market avenues that are present in the market today. Then I will tell you a little bit about the compensations and perks that are available for designers, the kind of working environments that you have, the kind of skill set and mindset that you actually need to be a successful designer, and then a case study. This is a very long list, and I am going to take you through all of this today. But before that, I would like to take you through this agenda one more time in a slightly different way. So what exactly is a UI UX designer? Why designers are important? A day in the life of a UX designer, scopes and prospects, working environments, skill set mindset, case study. So this is exactly the same content that was there on the previous slide, but it is a lot shorter and sweeter, and it feels better to go through this agenda. Now, let's do it one more time. What exactly is a UI UX designer? Why designers are important? A day in the life of a designer, scope, prospects, working environments, skill set and mindset, and case study. Now, this time around, the agenda feels short and sweet, and it also looks better. It's nicely placed, good fonts are used, colors are used, so it looks a lot better. Now, I think I'm equipped to answer the question, what is UI UX design? So when we were talking about how the agenda is looking, it's looking nice, beautiful, nice colors used. We were talking about the user interface of the agenda. And then we were talking about how it feels short and sweet and it's appearing one by one. It feels much better than a one long list. But at that time, we were talking about how we are experiencing the site, and that is the user experience design. Next, I would like to first introduce you to a term called cognitive load, which is very important to know before you become a UI UX designer. Cognitive load, the technical definition, is the amount of mental resources required to operate a system. And in simple terms, it just means how much a user needs to think when he's using a product that you have designed. And it is not very difficult to understand that if a product is very easy to use and the user doesn't have to think much, then it is a good design. So if the cognitive load of your design is minimal, it is a very good design. And there are certain simple pointers to make sure that it is a good design, like be predictable. Don't introduce something that is totally new, which would confuse the user. Avoid visual clutter, like we saw in the first slide of our agenda. When it was a lot of information cramped up in one small place, it is a lot of clutter and it confuses the user. And then the third point, be obvious. Don't do something extremely new, which would again scare off the user. simple things that a good design need. And once we know what this term is, then I'll take the next thing one at a time. What actually is user experience? So user experience is how a person feels when he's using a product. And when I talk about product, it is not just mobile apps or websites. It can be any physical product also, like a video or a flyer or any other experience like driving a car. So that experience also needs to be designed by someone. And the person who designs this is called a user experience design. So when a user experience designer is at work, he's not actually designing a product, he's designing the experience. So he's thinking of how the user is going to experience the product. And when doing so, there are certain questions he needs to answer. For example, what the product is, what is the user thinking when he's using that product, when the product is going to be used, and where the product is going to be used, in which kind of circumstances is the product going to be used, why, how, and who is going to use this product. So answer to all these questions change the experience that a product will have. For example, the answer to who, if it is a set of small children, then it will be a product which looks nice and colorful. Whereas if the answer to who is a set of professionals for a company or something, then it will have subtle colors and it will have to look professional. So the experience changes according to the answers to this question. And once an experience for a product is in place, the next thing that comes in is a user interface. User interface is nothing but the look of the product. And we all know that a good first impression is important for any person to engage with your product. So a good first impression ensures that a longer time is spent on the product that you have designed or the page or the screen you have designed when it comes to digital products. And how a digital product looks is decided depending upon the colors that have been used, the fonts that have been used, the buttons, their shape, size, and all the cosmetics. So this is the job of a user interface designer when we're talking about digital products. He's the one who decides the color schemes, the typography schemes, how the buttons will be, and where they're placed. And the user interface designer ensures that the product looks very nice and hence the user feels like actually experiencing your product. So from what all I have spoken till now, we can understand that these two terms, user experience design and user interface design, are not entirely different. You can't have a good product if you just have good interface, and you can't have a good product if you have only a good experience. You need both of them. And that is why in many companies, both of these jobs are done by a single person who is called a UI and UX designer. Then only designing a product and making it look beautiful or feel good is not the only job that a UI UX designer does. An important part of his job is also to make sure that the business goals are achieved. For example, if you design a website for an e-commerce client, which looks very nice, which feels very nice, but it doesn't achieve the goal, the people are not coming to your website and buying products, then you're not achieving the business goal. So it's of no use. So UI UX designer has to keep in mind that he has to fulfill the user needs as well as the business needs at the same time. This feels like a difficult job to do, and we wonder how the sweet spot would be achieved. So for that, I'll take you through the processes that a UI UX designer follows, which make things easier for us to achieve this. So before I go on ahead to the processes, if anyone has any questions relating to what I've covered till now, what actually is UI UX design, you can ask me right now. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'll go on ahead. And the next thing I'll be talking about is what a UX designer actually does in his day. So there is a simple process called the UX design process that needs to be followed. And it is divided into 4 major parts. The first one is digging and understanding what the project actually is, what the users are. After that, you have to think and actually create a product. Then you need to beautify it. and then you need to improvise upon it. So this is a cyclic process which goes on, and you keep on improving upon your designs to come up with the best design possible. We'll take these steps one at a time. The first one is user research. Now, user research has two parts to it: quantitative and qualitative research. So when you're carrying out researches, quantitative is when you're talking about how many people are going to use it, how many people actually like your product. So things that are concerned with numbers are quantitative research. And qualitative research is about getting into the shoes of the user, getting into their mindset and understanding what the user is actually expecting from your product. So there are certain modes of research that are available to do this. You can carry out interviews, you can carry out online surveys, and you can sit and observe a user when he's using your product or something that is similar to your product. So all of these things in place, once you have done the observations, you get answers to your questions through interviews and online surveys, then you create personas. Personas are nothing but creating imaginary users for your product. So when you create a persona, you talk about first thing, the task, which is what task the user is trying to achieve when he's going to use your product. You have to be clear what your product is going to do. Next, you think about the influences, which means what are the kind of people he's living with, where is he living, what are influencing him, because these things will decide what kind of design he likes. Then you need to know the overall goal of his life, what the user is actually wanting to achieve in his life, because this also will influence the kind of apps that the user is going to use. Then you need to know the pain points. Pain points are the hurdles that are coming for a user when he's using an app that is similar to yours or maybe your competitor. So once you know what the hurdles are, you can have a design that are overcoming the hurdles and hence is a better design. And then another important thing is knowing the feelings of the product, of the user, sorry. So when you're talking about the feelings, it's more about the experience design. You need to know what the user is expecting from your product and what matters to him. So this will define what kind of an experience the user is expecting from your product. So one example done for a persona, when I was working on an intranet project, I'd like to show it to you. So I thought of an imaginary person called Steve. So he's a senior person, he's well-educated and a professionally oriented person. And he's using this intranet in the company for more than 10 years now. So, and another important trait of his personality is that he has little patience for details and he dislikes overly complicated processes. His goals are to become a leader of the sales department, and he wants to help the company reach maximum sales for his financial year. So knowing these goals would help us say that when he's using the intranet, he would majorly be using the sales or the financial part of our intranet. And talking about his frustrations or pain points, we say that he has an inability to use computers like younger team members. He takes too long to find the required tools in the intranet, and the timesheets format is too complicated. So knowing this gives us an idea that when we design the intranet, it has to be easy to use even for senior members. Maybe the tools need to come out more boldly and they need to be more appearing more clearly for the users to make out. And then the timesheets format also needs to be redesigned. So when you form personas like this, it helps you understand what the user would actually be thinking about your product. And here I have made one persona of a person that is a senior member of the team. You could make multiple personas of maybe another person who's much younger and who's using the product. And then we know what younger members are thinking and what they want from our product. So such personas will help you understand your user, get into their mindset, and design a better experience and a better product for them. So does anyone have any questions on this kind of a persona mapping? Okay, so if no questions, again, I'll go on ahead. The next step, once your user personas are in place is information architecture and wireframing. Now, this step is more about the content part of your product, your website, or your app. So when we're talking about information architecture, the first step is creating information architecture. Information architecture is organizing and structuring the information, the content that you have for your website. For example, now, if this is an intranet website and you have multiple kind of users for it, say you have an admin user, you have a help desk user, and you have an end user for your product. Now, all of these three entities are entirely different and they need to see different content when they are into our website. So we'll have a login which is separate for the admin, a login which is separate for help desk, and a login which is separate for the end user. And after login also, the pages and the content that they'll all see will be different. So when you're making a map like this, you're organizing and you're structuring all the information so that you know what goes there. So you have, yes? Is there any question?
No.
Okay, fine. Okay. So once your structuring of the information is done, the next step is making sitemaps. Sitemaps, you must all of have, many of you must have heard this word because many websites also give sitemaps in their website at the bottom. So this is nothing but the content of the website or what pages are there in the website and how you navigate to each of the page. So for example, if you have a product website, the main home page will be there. From there, you can have pages like About Us, Services, Products, and Blog. From the main page, you can also navigate to the Contact Us page. And you can also navigate to the Contact Us page from the home page. Whereas from Services and Products, you go to the individual services and product pages. So this is a kind of sitemap, what goes where and how you navigate to different pages. So when these two important steps of knowing the information that is going in and how it's going to be placed, the next step is creating workflows. Now, workflows are taking a task that your website or app is going to complete and have the workflow, how the data is going to flow or how the user is going to see one screen after the another when he's using the app. Now, one task that I've taken here, for example, is logging in when your app is launched. So say the first step is app being launched. You see the landing page. And if it's a new user and he doesn't want to log in, he can go directly to the other pages of the app. If the user wants to log in, he clicks on the login button. He comes here. There are two cases. He has an account. He logs in and he goes to the other pages. The second case is he does not have an account. In that case, we have to sign him up. And the process may be confirm his email address, confirm that he's signed up. And once the sign up is done, go back to the login page. Once you have logged in, go to the other pages. So this is a sample workflow for the login process. So you need to know what tasks your website or the app is going to complete and then create workflows for each of the tasks. And once the workflows are also in place, most of your content and the working of their website or the app is in place. So the next step that users, the designers do is sketching out wireframes. Now this is using a pencil to just jot down or scribble out what ideas are forming in your mind, how things would be placed on the mobile app or a website. You can have rough pencil sketches and discuss with your colleagues, say what's going where and how things are going to flow out around. What is happening in your mind? You can get it out down in the paper so that your ideas are clear. And once you discuss this with your colleagues and have some concrete thing in your mind, you can go back and create digital wireframes. Now, digital wireframes is an important step. We have multiple softwares available like InVision or Azure or Photoshop, which help us create wireframes for our products. So you sort of create dummy pages for your app and show what details are going to go in. Say there's going to be a checkbox over here, there's going to be a slide button here. So it's kind of giving an idea of what things are going where and how things are going to flow from one page to the other. Digital wireframes are important because they connect with the next step, which is user testing. So this is the first primary round of conducting a user test and evaluating what you have done so far, the designs that you have created, the workflows that you have created. You give it all to the users of your product and ask them to interact with your product and see how they are working with your product. So you can find out if your designs are good or not, modify the workflows according to the test results that you get. So this is an iterative process. When the users test your product, you observe them, you find out whether they're happy with what you have done or something needs to be changed. So if that happens, you go back to the previous step and change whatever is required and come to the next step again. So this is an iterative process which helps you improve upon your workflows, your wireframes, sitemaps, everything. So once this iterative step of user testing and forming initial designs is done, most of your experience is in place, which you have already tested with users. And then you go on to the next step, creating visual designs. So this is where the user interface designer is now coming in. The first step is creating mood boards. Mood boards are they are a sort of collage of all swatches of different things that you might use in your visual design. For example, if I have to design a website which is related to a baby, I would say that I'm going to use soft colors like yellow, orange, and I'm going to use rounded fonts and curvy clip arts and cute photos of babies when I'm going to design the end product. So this is sort of giving an idea to your client that what is going on in your mind related to the visual design of the product. And it is helpful in a way saying that maybe I make this kind of a mood board and show it to my client. And he says that he doesn't want brown color, but he wants pink color in the visual design. So here I have saved one step where I would have designed a brown website totally and gone back. And then the client would have said, no, I don't like this, I want pink. So here I've reduced that one step. So mood boards help in actually understanding what the client is expecting from the visual designs.
Hello?
Yes.
What is the difference between a mood board and a concept board?
It is similar. It's the same thing. It's the same name for two things. So it is actually giving an idea to your client of what is going on in your mind, what kinds of concepts are good.
You telling a mood board is this where you pick one thing and you have different phases to use, and the concept is which we give it to a client or a client give us that we
Uh,
need this concept and you have to design in that way.
yes, but both of the things are similar. It's like it's the first step. It's like a zeroth step before you create the visual designs. Like you actually compile things and show what you're going to use. Both of
So
the things.
first, I'm like we as a designers. So
Mhm.
now what should we do? We give a first concept board or we should give a mood board?
A mood board is also important. You could give both of them together also. Concept is more of when you're doing the initial step, like when you're sketching out things and wireframes, that's also a part of concept if you're talking about that. But mood board is more about the visual designs of it.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, it's about the colors and the look of it.
Okay, ma'am.
So mood board is important. It is the primary step before you go on to the visual design of the product. And once a mood board is approved by a client, then the interface designer would actually go on ahead and create color schemes, typography schemes, what fonts you're going to use. And then generally we create 2 or 3 visual designs and give it to the client, from which one of them will be selected. And once a visual design is in place, then the next important step is creating clickable prototypes which actually resemble the product. So these are very high fidelity prototypes which look just like your final product, but are not still given to the developers, but they can be given to the users for a next round of testing. So again, this becomes an iterative process where you design high fidelity prototypes which look exactly like the final product. So you get better results from the tests, the user tests that you carry out. You do the same things, observe the users, see how they are interacting with your product, and make sure that whatever you have designed till now is actually good. So when these steps are done, then comes the final step, is the delivery, when you hand off your designs to the developer team. So when we do this, we have to make sure that we give them all the possible information about our designs, and they don't have to come back to us every time asking about things. So a sample style guide that we provide to developers includes every small detail about your design. For example, the pixels, how much the page should be, what kind of fonts are used, what pixel fonts are used, what kinds of buttons would be used, the colors, the fonts, how the icons are going to be used, the color palettes, different colors that would be used. And at times we even show interactions, how a button would look when it's normal, when it's clicked, when there's a failure, or when there's a success. So you have to define all the possible things that are there in your design. And that is how you hand off to the developers. So this is the process that a UX designer generally follows for a good design. So when you talk about UX and UI deliverables, if you want to separate it out, we would say that a UX designer is expected to do the first part of design, which includes research, persona mapping, user research, creating the content of the website, creating user flows and tasks and wireframes of the screen, and low fidelity interactive prototypes. And a user interface designer works with the design of the look and aesthetics of the product. So he's expected to give out mood boards and pixel perfect prototypes, visual designs, and style guides to the developers. And if we think about the different softwares or tools of trades that these designers need to use, good softwares available for UX and UI also. Many of the softwares are used commonly. So Sketch app on Macs, if you have Macs, Sketch app is a very leading software used for UX and UI design. InVision is many times used in connection with Sketch app, which helps us demonstrate how the screens are, how the workflow is going to be between the screens. Azure RP is one tool designed specially for UX, user experience. So it allows you to design screens and show how the interactions are going to be. It is a very high fidelity software, so people might use it for designing the look of the website also, but many times we advise not to, because we have much better softwares like Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator for UI design, and then there's Adobe After Effects, which helps design some nice, interesting animation for your products. So,
Ma'am, we even use AutoCAD. So in which category does that come?
AutoCAD if you would talk about UI UX design for web products, website and things, AutoCAD is not usually used. AutoCAD would be used for, I would say, 3D modeling and design.
So SketchUp and Max, you have even this Lumion for rendering the stuff. So do they come in UX or UI?
If you're talking about rendering, it would be UI, but AutoCAD and all, we have, so far in my career, I have not used AutoCAD. And SketchUp also, this I'm talking is a Sketch app, not SketchUp. SketchUp is different for, I believe it's for more of, you use for architecture, right? SketchUp.
Yeah, architecture and even the Photoshop we use for editing and bit of rendering.
Correct. So that you do when you're designing your user interface, you're designing the colors and fonts. So at that time you can use Photoshop. So,
okay,
and yeah, so, and as you have used Photoshop, you also know that Photoshop allows you to create designs in pixels when you change the settings out to pixels. So that's why you can also use it to create UX. But like I said, the first three ones are majorly used for UX. Photoshop, sometimes it is also used, not so much majorly for user interface design. The look, the colors and fonts, for that Photoshop would be used. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for creating the style guides, so how can we which software we can use, or which is the preferable software we can use?
Many a times, Photoshop is used for creating style guides. So it is easy in Photoshop because you can define, like if you're talking in technical terms, you can define arrows and stuff. It is easy. When I talk about InVision and SketchUp, it is also very easy for creating style guides, because if you have created a design in SketchUp and then you have integrated it with InVision, you can automatically export style guides. So they have provisions for it also. But like I said, SketchUp is available only on Mac, Apple devices. So InVision and SketchUp for Apple devices. Azure RP doesn't have the ability to create style guides, so you have to use Photoshop, majority.
Hello.
Yeah.
So for Adobe, there is an assets.adobe.com in which you can upload your designs, and you can share them. You can add the other person in the project, and they can simply by viewing the design, I mean the whole by layer to layer, they can see whole design and everything. The UI designer can simply check whole styles. I mean, you don't need to create a style guide for that.
Right. So
Creating
that
using
same
Jarian and
function.
creating style guides. So the best
Correct.
part about it is not only that, you can even download images or everything that is added in design. You can download everything, so you don't need to fetch anything from it.
Yes, I know that. So that is also available when in InVision. But the thing is, these are all tools of our trade which are reducing our efforts. So they are there. They are available to help you out with things. But creating style guides is also one skill that you need to know when you're a user interface designer. So yeah, softwares are there to help you out. There are many softwares out there which help you out with a lot of stuff.
Just in addition, that was saying.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go ahead. So now that we have talked about what is expected from you as a UI UX designer and user interface designer, we need to know whether it's actually worth all of the effort. And when we're talking about whether a career is worth or not, the major thing we need to know is whether you have good scope and prospects for this. So if we talk about big companies, big brands like Apple or Coke, the main thing that is common in all of these successful brands is a good design. And a recent study,
Hello?
yes? Yes? Okay, so a recent study which was carried out showed that the companies which focused on design as an important part actually increased their revenue by close to 200%. So these companies include software companies like IBM, consumer goods companies like Nike and Procter and Gamble, IT product companies like Apple, IBM also again, food industries, hospitality industries, as well as shopping industries. So you see that everywhere, every field that you see right now requires designers. So, and there are also some general statistics and numbers which tell us that 35% of people stop engaging with a website if it is not looking very good. 88% of online customers would not return back to your website if the experience was not good. And 48% of people would rate the credibility of your business depending upon whether your website is good or not. So UX designers are important, and companies are understanding the importance of UX design, and they are also paying a lot. So if you take a look at the average salaries globally, a UX designer could earn something up to 36 lakhs rupees a year. And in India, depending upon your experience and how good you are in the field, the average salary range is from 3 lakhs to 20 lakhs per annum, which is a very good thing. Um, a screenshot from salaries payscale.com would also show you that the maximum salary achievable if you have something like 20 years of experience could go as high as 2 crores a year. So it's a really very high paying job. And in addition to that, it is also a very fun-filled job. It is not a job where you will just sit in front of the computer the entire day and design alone. You have to go out. There's a lot of field work included. You have to go out, take interviews. You have to interact with different kind of people. You have to carry out group discussions, analyze what you have found, and then design the product and actually go out and again test out the product with different kinds of users. So it is a lot of interaction with different kind of people. You get to meet a lot of different people, and it's a lot of fun. And UX is in demand, like I said before, and companies are aware of it, and though they go above and beyond to attract, retain, and motivate talent. So if you see some design companies around the world, do a search for nice design offices. They are nice and colorful, and you enjoy actually being in a design office. And another very important thing is that with this career, you can also have an option of working from home. So things like carrying out surveys and interviews, you can do in your local area, or you can do things online. So the option of working from home is also available, which gives a good work-life balance. So it's a nice career option when you think about the salaries and the work-life balance also. But then the next question that comes to your mind is, do you actually have what it takes to become a UX designer? And if you feel you find yourself saying things like, I don't know Photoshop, or I can't draw, and I can't use these softwares. So these things can be learned. That's not the problem. What you really need is a problem-solving attitude. And you need to be able to observe people. You need to be able to observe how users are using things. So if you find yourself looking at people, if you think that they're not happy with some app, and you can come up with some better options, then you can definitely be a UX designer. If you can connect with other people, if you understand what their problems are, then you can be a good user experience designer, because the softwares and the other things can definitely be learned later on. A few simple examples of good and bad, like for example, if you have buttons which are negative and positive, say if there's a form you're filling, and the positive button would be a submit button, negative button would be something like an abort button. So you don't have to be a real big expert to know that if you design buttons which have much higher contrast, they'll be the first thing that the user spots than other buttons which are not so high on contrast. Another very simple example I can give is of buttons for signing up and signing in. So say if you have two buttons saying similar things, sign up, sign in, it kind of tends to confuse a user because it is looking similar. It is also, it has text that looks very similar. So it gets confusing. Whereas if you have two buttons which have different text written in it, at least it's a little different. So it is a little better. But if you have buttons which also look different and which have entirely different things written in them, then the user will actually go in and read out both the buttons, and he'll be very clear what both the buttons are doing. So these are some simple examples of good and bad design, and it is very obvious. It is not rocket science. So you can be a good designer if you can observe such kind of things when you're using apps and website. Yes, is there some question? Okay, so that's a lot of content that I have taken you through of what UX and UI designers are and what they do. And if you guys are okay, and if there are some questions about what we have done so far, you can ask me right now. Otherwise, I'll take you through some case studies for UX and UI design.
Yeah, I have one question. Yeah, I
Yes.
have one question. Yeah. So, as we discussed for regarding the personas, so
Mhm.
I want to know about that. How can we create? Is there any software we can use for creating personas, or this is a manual thing, or is there anything else we can use for personas?
Well, there are, I mean, you would not actually go out and use some software for creating personas. There might be. I haven't personally used, because uh, it is you who has to think about what the person is going to be like. Like, I gave you a sort of um, the example that I showed you here. You have such kinds of guides which will tell you what kind of questions you need to ask, like what are the tasks, what are the answers. So you can have guides like this which will help you create personas. And the persona that I showed you, I had created it directly in a PowerPoint. So you don't need softwares like that for creating personas. It is fairly simple. So I think if you go out and search for some software for creating personas, you might as well find something, but you don't really need it, is what I would say.
Ma'am, I have one question.
Yes.
Uh, Basically, if at all I'm listing a set of tasks that will be performed in a website, on a
Mm-hmm.
website by a set of users, and I
Mm-hmm.
list down different users, and then I pinpoint that multiple tasks can be redundant between multiple type of users, such as if a super admin is there and an admin is there. There might be tasks that be common in both. So do
Mm-hmm.
I need to create five different personas or four different personas for each individual user that I
Mm-hmm.
am having on my website?
See, if you have tasks that are common for users, you don't need to create for that particular task. But since you have different users, their mindsets or the way they're going to be looking at your product are going to be different. Like, say if you have an admin user, if we are talking about an intranet product, you have an admin user and you have a help desk user. um, if you think about it, the level of thinking or their qualifications and their overall the ecosystem that they are in is going to be different. So the way they look at the product is also going to be different. So it is always better that you take one, at least one person from each kind of user to create your persona. And then if you have multiple for each kind of user, it is even better. So you have to understand every kind of person that is going to be using your product. That's the main aim behind creating a persona.
Okay, so you're by saying persona,
Mhm.
um, is persona a UML diagram? Can we say that? I mean, is it something different from UML, or is it a part of UML only?
Sorry, what a part of?
Unified modeling. Basically, unified modeling language. We create some fixed diagram, use case diagrams, and all diagrams just before creating a website.
Hmm.
So, are these personas a part of those diagrams, or are these something different just for our sake of understanding that we are creating? I mean, those are also the ones that we create for the sake of understanding.
Hmm.
Like the one in the picture that you in the video that is showing here, it is an AEIOU diagram, something. So we created in our college for just for the sake of practice in our software engineering.
Hmm.
So a few diagrams that we create during the course before creating a website to have a complete understanding of what we are going to create. So in that there was one of these diagrams in UML that we are having stickmans lying in one corner, and
Hmm.
then other side we have all the set of tasks, and we'll be pointing all these tasks to the stickman. So is
Hmm.
that, can we consider this persona as a part of that UML diagram only, or is it
Uh,
something different?
it is a part of it, maybe. So when you're creating those stick diagrams, I would say it is one of the defining one of the stick diagrams is what a persona is, what the user is going to think. So yes, it is sort of something of that. It is
Okay.
created to understand what the users are, how the user are going to interact with it. It is a
Okay.
part. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a very generic question, like what is the difference between graphic designing and UI designing?
Um, uh, Many graphic designers often do come to the UI design field. So it is quite similar. When you are a graphic designer, you create many of what do they call it? Like you create boards and flyers and things. So at times UI designers are also expected to create the same thing. So I would say, yeah, graphic designers and UI designers would be very similar.
So can it be said that graphic designers have more scope in creating designs as compared to UI designers? Because UI, they are limited to creating the mobile apps, the websites, whereas graphic designers, they create like illustrations and everything else.
Yes, they do create everything else, but when you're a UI designer, you think more in pixel kind of uh, pixel perfect designs. So yes, when you're a graphic designer, there's a lot more things you get to design, and UI could be a part of your portfolio as well. So it could be a subset of graphic design.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I'm one more question. Sorry.
Yes. No, of course.
So, yeah. So, the question that she asked is what I understood is that the scope of a person. I mean, like if at all I am a UI designer, I'm supposed to design. Maybe pixel perfect, but the design that is being provided by a UX designer to me, I'll be designing the same, but my designing will be limited to either web designing or mobile app designing. But as part of if at all I am a graphic design, I mean UX designer, I can switch my thing from mobile or web designing to product designing. When I'm considering a product design, it doesn't mean a web product or a mobile app product, but this can be any other product that an end user is using, a physical product as well.
Yes, that's right.
So the scope of the UX designer is more as compared to UI designers.
Yes, and if you see at the salaries also, the UX designers at times get paid higher than UI designers. So yes, it is a higher scope. And UI design is many a times a subset of UX also. So yeah, UX designers are having better scope than UI designers.
But then again, UX is very different from graphics, right?
Yes, UX is different from graphics design. So a user interface designer can be a graphics designer, but not a user experience designer, I would say. Because experience design would include a lot of other things, do content mapping, persona mapping, a lot of other things, rather than just the visual part of
UX design.
Yeah, sorry?
It's more of theoretical concept, like UX designing.
What do you mean a theoretical concept?
Means you don't have to work around with making a lot of things like drawing and colors and all. UX designing.
Yes, UX is designing the, I would say, the content, the wireframes, how the things are going to flow from one place to the other. So for being a UX designer, you don't have to have knowledge about colors or things like that. But you need to know how the person is basically interacting with your product and what he'll like.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll go ahead with the case studies. Now, the first case study that I have taken is something that is a physical product. Again, to clear the doubt that UX, user experience design, is not just confined to digital products like websites and apps. So we all know this Heinz tomato ketchup bottle. Previously it used to be a glass bottle, which looked very nice. It is a symmetrical, nice design. And especially the label design, when we look at it keenly, we find that there is some thought behind the label. First, you see Heinz, which is the most important thing you need to know, which is the company name. Then your eyes travel to tomato ketchup, and then down below to the net weight. So this is a wise usage of typography, how the user will see and look at your product. So this is a very well designed label. But when Heinz carried out a user research, they found that people are very happy with what is inside the bottle, but the bottle breaks, and when the tomato ketchup is about to get over at the bottom, they have to turn it around and tap it out to get the tomato ketchup out. So this was an experience that the users were not very happy. So the user experience designer comes in and he changes the design of the bottle. Now, since the label was well designed, that has been kept fairly similar, but the bottle is now upside down. And when the bottle design was changed, the user experience changed the workflow of the bottle. When we see the first bottle, there are 3 steps involved in using it: twisting the cap open, turning the bottle upside down, and then tapping out the ketchup. Whereas with the new design, you just have to flip open the cap and you squeeze out the ketchup. So the workflow is now shorter and much easier. And you can squeeze the tomato ketchup out very easily. There's a vacuum cap which avoids excessive flow, and the plastic won't break. So the experience problems that the people have been solved, and it's a much better experience. And interestingly, when the experience was changed, the sales of the bottle rose by 6%, whereas the rest of the company was at 2%. So here we see that the user experience designer has also achieved the business need of increasing the sale of the product. So this is a simple example which shows us that user experience is not just confined to digital products, but it is over a lot of different fields of the physical product. So this is one short case study that I presented, and if anyone has some questions about it, you can ask. Otherwise, I'll take you through another case study, which is more on the technical terms for UI and UX design. Okay, so in this case study, we are taking a sort of an imaginary project where we have to implement a physical print option to Instagram. So I guess Instagrams all of us must have used. So the first step is carrying out user researches. So the methods used are online surveys and actually going out and interviewing people. And we formed groups of different age groups, 18 to 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 40, and 41 years and above. So questions were formed and asked to these different age groups, some questions relating to our app, relating to similar apps, and the feature that we want to introduce. So questions like, how often do you use Instagram? What do you use it for? Do you use other photo apps? This helps us know our competitors. Then, do users actually order prints of photos online? Do they share pictures online, or are they comfortable making online ordering or online payments? And would they actually use a physical print option if given in Instagram? So this helps us understand whether the users are comfortable with the kind of feature we are trying to introduce, and also whether users are using our app or not. So when this survey was carried out, it was found that 95% of the people use Instagram, which tells that it is a fairly popular app, and close to 70% said that they would actually order prints if the feature was available. So this also tells us that the idea of introducing a physical print app is a good idea, and we are not just wasting our time doing this project. The next step is carrying out competitive research. Competitive research is where you find out what other apps in the market are doing things that are similar to yours. What are the competition that you have in this field? So Snapchat and Walgreens were 2 apps that were looked at. And we see that Snapchat has a very nice intuitive interface with some whimsical interactions, nice funky things that you can do with the app. And the sharing with this app is very easy, which the people like. And Walgreens has a clear onboarding process and social interaction and a very nice interface for printing photos. Clear onboarding means they have nice tutorials, like even WhatsApp. When we use for the first time, it has clear onboarding instructions, very nice instructions to explain what is going on and how the app is going to work. So when this kind of a research is done, we jot down our results, and we find that Instagram is very popular. 70% of the users use the app daily. Users want new feature to be familiar. So familiarity is important. You cannot introduce something that is totally different and expect the users to be happy and use it properly. Simplicity is also important. It has to be simple and easy to use. Don't waste the user's time. It has to be easy and it has to have quick workflows. Be clear about any costs and make payments easy. So easy and clear payments are important when it comes to something that has online ordering or transactions online. So with this, next we create some personas. Two example personas created here are one of a person called John, 28 years. The task that he wants to achieve with this app is to be able to share his life with friends, maybe in form of pictures. He wants to archive his adventures and he needs security for his pictures. The pain points are he doesn't like too many feature sets to be there. He's scared about identity theft. So again, he's interested in security. He's digitally native, but he's not a tech wizard. He's able to use the app, but doesn't care about too much details of the app. Goals are to be a financial service head, and he likes hanging out with his college friends, and he likes doing outdoor activities, which means again, there'll be a lot of photographs and sharing around. Next, a girl called Jane Doe, 23 years, working professional. She wants to use this app as a way to connect to the social network, and she would also use it for creating and sharing marketing material and to get inspiration for her work. And she wants an easy way to print out her pictures. Pain points are she finds the current sign-in process complicated, and she has to re-enter the payment method again and again. And recently ordered printed pictures had to be cut out. So printed pictures need to be given in a better way. She wants to be a fashion market head, and she likes fashion, sharing pictures, and socializing. So these are just two examples which kind of help us to understand two different kinds of users, one the fashion designer and another related to a completely different field, how they would like to interact with our app. Once this is done, next we see the sitemap. Now Instagram is an app which is already in place, so it has a big sitemap which we are not concerned with right now. We are concerned with the print option. So we can give this print option from the profile page, go to the print, then image select page, confirm selection, the cart when you're confirmed, checkout, and the final confirmation, and add more option if you want to add more photographs. This is a simple kind of a sitemap that we would have for this feature. Next are workflows. Now, when we are introducing this kind of a new feature, we would have two important workflows. First, obviously, being the print workflow. And the other one, because this is a new feature you're introducing, you should have a tutorial for it. So the onboarding, launch app and have tutorial screens and then exit the tutorial. And then the printing workflow, which starts from the profile page. So open the profile page, go to the print pictures list, select the pictures, go to your cart, select the billing information. You can select already existing data or enter a new billing data. Then the shipping address, select already existing or a new address, and then a final confirmation of the order. So once the workflows are in place, we start with the sketching. Sketch out the ideas. Say we have sketched out that there'll be a profile picture here, some information about the user, and the pictures will be placed here. When you're selecting the pictures, this is how it will be shown: total cost, number of photos selected, So sketched it out, converted into low fidelity wireframes. So now these are low fidelity wireframes that just explain what things are going to go where. Photos will be placed here, username, user will be here, and how the card would look sort of. So this is a simple wireframe created in Azure. And then after that, once the wireframes are in place, you do user testing, and then you convert it into high fidelity visual designs using, this is created using Photoshop. So this is a sample sort of workflow that would generally follow when you're going through a project that has come to a UI and UX designer. So that completes this case study. So if anyone has some questions, again, you can definitely, you feel free to ask me. If there are no questions, then I would like to go ahead